4 years ago, Alex Lewis was rushed to Winchester Hospital after days of thinking he had a common cold. His symptoms worsened and he was close to death as his body began to shut down.
So initially it was just a cold and flu-like symptom. I felt rough, but no more than a normal flu symptom would be. I took to my bed for a couple of days thinking I'd try and get through it. It didn't work. And then when I found blood in my urine on that night, after a couple of weeks, following day, all of a sudden my skin was starting to turn purple, and that was the beginning of the strep and the toxic shock syndrome. So all my internal organs were shutting down, but we didn't know it at the time.
Doctors told his family he only had a 3% chance of surviving as they discovered he'd contracted Strep A. The infection was aggressively killing his body and his only chance of survival was to amputate his limbs.
I could see my legs dying in front of me. When I was in Salisbury Hospital, Lucy would lift up the bedsheet, and every day I could see that the skin cells were dying and they're getting closer and closer to my waist. So we knew that, although they said initially they'd amputate my feet, I think in our hearts we knew that it had got too far for that, and that I would lose my knee joints in the end. And it's only when I got to Salisbury that I could see that everything was starting to die, and I was on dialysis for 8 weeks. I had every machine going in resus to keep me alive, because my body just couldn't cope with what was happening. So I was being eaten alive really from the inside.
Strep A is often found on the surface of our skin, but for Alex, it developed deep inside his body.
It attacks from your extremities, so it gets your toes, your fingers. I lost a little bit of my nose, obviously my lips, and I think a little tops of my ears had died as well. So we could see that it was like a gangrene effect really. But when I went to Salisbury after about 10 days in Winchester A&E, in resus, sorry, when I was presented in Salisbury, they said initially that I would lose my feet and that I would lose my left arm. They felt that they could save my right arm at that point. But after a few days, it was so aggressive and the toxic shock had kicked in, that the dead skin had gone above my knee, almost to my waist. My left arm had gone completely black and my right arm was heading the same way. So amputation was key to my survival.
Despite his ordeal, the 37-year-old is now working with students to help enhance the mobility of prosthetic limbs.
So at the moment we're working on a prosthetic device for me that allows me to become a bit more fluid from a drawing perspective because of my interior design company. At the moment I have a rigid prosthetic hook, so it's very hard to get an idea of how you draw and the scale and things. The iPad Pro is great, but I just need a little bit more fluidity to when I use the stylus. So we're working on an attachment for that. We're working on various socket designs for that as well. We're working on a vehicle that we hope to trial in Ethiopia, where I would be the guy hand cycling, but then I would generate my own power, which we could store in a battery.
He hopes his vision will change the face of prosthetics and help enhance the lives of other amputees.
So for me, it's a huge part of my rehabilitation probably that I get the opportunity to work with these guys to help the advancement of prosthetic moving forward, and then the benefit to people in the future. It could be massive, and to think that I had a small part to do with that, it's an amazing thing.
After undergoing 90 hours of surgery and having around 35 skin grafts, Alex still has a positive outlook on life.
I think it's made me a much stronger person, and I think it's made me better. I think it's improved who I am. And, I wouldn't want to go through it again, I have to say, but I'm grateful for what went on because it has altered my life for the better.
Kirstie Chambers, That's TV.